Hey everyone, it's Voltage here, and today we're going to do a little bit of a different video once again. We're going to talk a little bit about Voltage Modular and specifically about our new micro bundle, the free version, and also the full micro bundle. And to do this, we are going to make a patch, and that's the patch you're seeing right now. And it's going to be some drums using only 3 modules. And then just to show off a little, we're going to do the same thing again with the paid bundle, just to show you how much easier it is, because we got to make some sales on the paid bundle, obviously. But also it's good to understand kind of the fundamentals of these things when you're patching in Voltage anyways. So it's a good exercise to try to do this, and hopefully it will be somewhat entertaining and hopefully educative even. So without further ado, let's get to it, and let's start off with a blank slate. Now this is actually some editing trickery, because actually the patch you were just listening to is the patch we're going to make right now. That's the nice thing of editing, you can actually go back in time. Excellent. So micro, we are going to need a few components, and for this we're just going to filter out all the micro stuff. We need an envelope, an amplifier, obviously an oscillator is very useful to have. There we go. And we are going to need a filter, and for the filter we have the option for the ladder filter. These are our base components. So let's start with our first patch. This will be the simplest. That's actually a hi-hat, in which case we actually don't need the low-pass filter per se. But let's start off with the hi-hat, then we do the bass drum, then we do the combination, the snare, and then we do a little sequence with those. So let's start off with a hi-hat. What is a hi-hat? A hi-hat is basically a short burst of noise. Now this gives us a little bit of a problem, because we actually don't have noise in our free bundle. But we can make noise, and if we take our oscillator, turn it into a sine wave oscillator, put the output into the pulse modulation, the phase modulation, we actually get noise. Now to check this out, we're going to connect the oscillator to the amp. We're going to set it up with a short decay, no attack. This will be connected to our attenuator. Full attenuation, and we can connect this, and there we go. Now if we want a longer hi-hat, that's also a possibility. So this is a short hi-hat, let's make it a bit longer, simply turn up the decay, and it's a long hi-hat. That's basically the easiest thing you can make. The only trick you need to know is that you can actually turn oscillator into a noise generator by doing this looped thing. Hi-hat out of the way. Let's get into our next patch. We are going to need all these things, and now we actually do need a filter. So let's make a bass drum. Now for a bass drum we need a few more elements. Let's arrange them like this. First off, we need once again a sine wave. Check. Going to put it into the amp. Out of the amp into the output. Or actually, let's put it through the filter. Output. And let's trigger this. Make it a bit longer. It's a extremely clean bass drum, so we're going to need to do a little bit more than this, and for that we're actually going to use the pitch. And if we take the output into the pitch, now we can turn down the decay, get a little bit of a snap, and now the reason why we need the filter is actually not the filter per se, but we can use the drive for some extra distortion. Tone down the decay. A little bit of filter. We need to turn off the resonance. Maybe make this a little bit snappier. Tiny bit longer. You can play around with these settings to your liking to find the sound that's going to work for you. You need to be a little bit careful with the transient. I think that's pretty okay. So that's our bass drums. It's a fairly simple patch. You just have an ADA for the amplitude. You have an ADA for the oscillator pitch, output into the amplifier, into the filter for the drive, and you can control it a little bit here. And that's your bass drum. Now for the snare we're going to have to do a little bit more work. It's going to be a little harder to make it sound good because the snare is a little bit more complicated. It's a combination of kind of a bass drum, kind of drum transient sound combined with a noisy tail of the snares rattling. So we kind of have to make two sounds. And we also have to keep in account that a snare drum is considerably smaller than a bass drum. So any kind of pitch changes, etc. will be smaller and shorter. So to kick this thing off, we're just going to do first the exact same thing as we already did. We're just going to make the hi-hat sound. So we take the output of the oscillator into the PM, slam that into a amplifier, take the top ADA into the CV input. Now if we output this, we have a snare again. Make it a bit longer, obviously. I can play around with the shape to make it more like a tick or a bit more drawn out. I think this will be quite a good sound. And we're just going to leave this where it is. That's our tail of the snare drum covered, as you can see. Same deal as the hi-hat. Now we need to make the snarey part of this equation. This is going to work a little bit differently than the previous patch, but the core principles are the same. So we're going to take a ADA output. We're going to use a second amplifier for this. Slam that into the bottom one in this case. Our input will be the oscillator. Our output will be our output of the oscillator into the filter, out to the interface. And now we should, if we turn up the attenuator, get a little noise. Very good. Now this by itself isn't quite there yet. What we're going to do next is we're going to take the ADA output, the same one we use for the amplitude, stick it into the top amplifier, into the pitch control. And this gives us a little bit more control over the height of the pitch change, because now we can change that level with this dial. So we can play around with this a bit. Bit shorter maybe. Let's leave it there for now. Let's add a little bit of resonance. Yeah. And now this control for the top will change the pitch of the snare body, so that's very nice to have. And you can actually combine the sounds in a very crude way by simply taking the output of the hi-hat sound straight into the input of the low-pass filter. There you go. Maybe make that snare sound a little quieter. More drive. More gain. And you can play around with this to your heart's content to find a good balance between the sounds. But that's our basic snare-like sound. You can also pitch it up with the octave knob. Make the transient really short. Let's leave it around there-ish for now. So we need a little bit more gain. And a little less gain on this. And we'll balance that around as we get to it. So now we have our 3 drum elements, all made with the 3 modules. Let's do a basic sequence. Now sequencing is going to be a little bit more interesting than one would expect, because our general sequencing is quite simple, but we have limited tools to our disposal. So our main sequencing trick will be using the clock. And clock is quite nice because we can set several clocks. So we want a 4 on the floor kick. And we want 8s for the hi-hats. Now in order to mix everything together, we're just going to use a few amplifiers. Going to take the output of the hi-hat into the first input. Then we're going to take the output of our bass drum contraption, that's from the low pass, into the second. Then we're going to take our snare output into the third. And we take all these outputs into the fourth, into the interface output. So now we should have, in theory, if we turn up the levels, individual control over all the sounds. So we want 4 on the 4 kicks, so we take the clock 4 notes, quarter notes into the ADA. A hi-hat 8 notes. And that's pretty simple. Now it gets a little bit trickier because now we don't want to have snare hitting every time with the bass drum. That would be easy. We can just take this clock and put it into the snare. But that sounds kind of bad. We actually want to have it on the third count, so we need to filter out the first count. Now we don't have offset on this module, so we're going to need a little bit of trickery here, and for that we're going to use micro CV sequencer, also free in the bundle. So let's throw it in. So micro CV will go off on the same counts as our bass drum. And just to make everything line up, we'll use a button. So we can actually reset these to be in sync. So every time the bass drum goes off, the CV goes off. And we want output only on the even numbers. So we're going to turn down all the, or we want to have it on the second count. So all the odd numbers are going down, all the even numbers are going up. That's what we want to do. And this goes to our handy dandy little snare trigger. And that's the basics of building a drum loop with just the 3 modules. Now obviously this is fairly cumbersome, so let's actually shrink this entire thing down. Now the micro blanks aren't out yet, but they will be coming soon, and I'm fairly sure we will add them to the free bundle as well. But if we don't, well, that's not a reason to buy the actual bundle. So let's make the same thing, but not using the free bundle, but let's actually do it with the normal micro bundle. So this is actually a lot easier because now we can use micro kick, snare and hats. Now all these modules rely on the same kind of basic stuff we just made down here, but they vastly expand on it and add a lot of functionality, and they also are a lot easier to tweak. As you could see with the homebrew, we had to do a lot of tweaking. That's all been done for you, so you can just focus on getting the right sound straight out of the module. Now we can start to use trigger sequencers. So let's get one for every step. There we go. And we have access to mixer. So let's get a mixer in there. Now this is fairly easy. We put it into eighth note mode. Oh, we still want to have a button as well. You always need to have a button. Put all the retriggers on the button. Put all the sequencers on the step sequencer. As you can see, they are now completely out of sync. Press the button, everything is nicely synced. For the hi-hats, we just want straight eighth notes. For the bass drum, we want the first and third count. First and third, and then the snare on 2 and 4. It's a basic beat. So this is our kick, our snare, and our hi-hat. And Bob's your uncle. Obviously this is a lot faster and it's a bit easier to change things around. But it's cool to see that you can actually make a full drum track including a very basic sequencer using just a free bundle. So that's the video I wanted to do today, just show you a little bit of Voltage Modular, show off a little bit of the micro modules and show off that you can get quite a bit of value out of the free pack. But obviously, if you want the easiest route to achieve things, I would highly recommend looking into the full bundle, which is still on the sales price of $50 right now, or $49.99. So make sure to pick it up. And if there are any questions, leave them down below. I'm going to wish you a great day.